Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage and the Porsche engine. In the previous video I changed the bearings on the crankshaft and refitted the oil pan. Now I'm going to continue on the rest of the work I need to do on this engine before I can fit it to the car again. I need to change the water pump, I need to do something about the bracket for the generator, I need to change the Cambelt, I need to change the oil seals, and I need to fit the clutch, which was the entire point of this job. And I probably also will change the thermostat. The first thing I want to do is to fit the oil seal on this end. I'm going to lube up the shaft to avoid scratching the journal, or scratching the seal. I'm going to fit some grease in the groove of the seal and dust shield. I'm going to lube up the outside of the seal. Then I will push it in. There we go. And then I'm going to turn my attention to this side of the engine because we have a problem here. Notice that? That's a piece of glue, rubber glue. The bracket for the generator has been glued on. I'm quite surprised that I didn't notice anything when I drove it. It seems to be charging just fine, but it wasn't squeaking either. But that's gotta be pretty random. But I'm going to remove the generator because I want to get access straight onto this area so I can make a new thread. And also I need to remove the water pump, and it's on that one also. So let's do that. There we go. I'm just going to go ahead and remove the water pump also while I'm in here. So let's attempt to inspect this. I hope to find just a seared off bolt in there that I can remove and then maybe just reuse the thread. Otherwise I hope to find something that I can make a new thread out of. But I honestly don't really know what to expect. I actually think this is supposed to be a rubber bushing, now that I look at it. But that means I will just be able to spin it out using one of these. So yeah, this is part of a rubber bushing. This part screws into the engine, then a piece of rubber, and then on the other side there is a screw also that goes into the bracket to isolate the vibrations. But I will have to see if I can find one of these. Now I'm just going to clean the old gasket off the water pump so I can install the new one. Now it's time to take a look at that Cambelt. I'm going to start by removing the valve cover also because I want to adjust the valves, and then we can fit it. So I'm also going to change the seal on the camshaft. Actually, I'm going to do a bit more up here because I'm also going to remove this oil pipe, because that is what is feeding the lobes with oil. And apparently it's common that they get clogged. And if you look at the cam lobes, some of them are cleaner than others, so I have a feeling that we might have an issue. I'm going to remove that later and flush it. But firstly, I just want to change that oil seal. There we go. Also just going to remove this old gasket that we are going to change anyway. There we go. Yeah, I don't know if it's visible, but it seems to be a little bit mucky in there. With the use of some good old brake clean, I think I can push the crap out of it. There we go, it's coming out of all of them. But this one actually got a crack right there. So pressure could escape from there. That wouldn't be very good. I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to get another one. Okay, so I seem to be pretty good at finding unobtainable stuff for the Porsche. These elbows are a common failure point on these engines. They go brittle, they crack, and that means less pressure will go to the cams, and that means the cams will wear out. Not because of oil pressure problem, but because of this little elbow. Mine is cracked, it's not great. I'm going to find another one, but they are no longer produced, hard to find. I can find some very expensive ones. I'm not going to pay extreme amount for this little plastic fellow, but I hope to find one. Right now I'm just going to put this back in and then pretend it's not there, and then hopefully find one before I start driving this car. But yeah, that's just the way it is. There we go. Next up, I'm going to install the lower pulley for the Cambelt and the auxiliary belt. These comes apart, but these bolts in here are very rounded off. I don't want to mess with them unless I have to. And then I need to align the mark in this one with this mark right there. There's a notch on the outside of the pulley that should align with that one. Normally you should take care when turning an engine where the cam belt is not on, but it is a non-interference one, so I don't have to be on this one. We got the mark right there. Do you see it? There's also a mark on the top pulley, but to align that with something we'll have to refit the cover. That is right there. And then I can go ahead and fit this new belt. We need to remove this to put it on. There we go. Yeah, and it's a bit loose. That's just the way they are. Not. And it's just a matter of turning this one, I think, anti-clockwise until I can barely turn the belt 90 degrees. That's it, that's right about there. And then I'm going to spin the engine over and make sure that the tension is still right, because right now the tension is higher on this side than this side. I'm going to spin it around 2 full revolutions, because because the camshaft spins at half the speed of the crankshaft, and I want the points to align up once again. So I'm going to spin it. This engine turns anti-clockwise, I think, on the second time. And the timing mark is coming up right there, aligning now. And it's bang on up here also. And the tension is supposed to be that I can barely turn it 90 degrees. I can, but just barely. So that's got to be fine. I don't want it to over tighten. And I'm not very concerned about this part of it because it's a non-interference engine. I love non-interference engines. And then I'm going to set the valves. I will start with cylinder number 1. Right now it is on top dead center. I'm just finished fitting the Cambelt, so it's there. That means I can adjust both of them. This is the intake, this is the exhaust. The exhaust is supposed to be 040 and the intake is supposed to be 010 millimeters. I'm gonna check the exhaust firstly. Yeah, it's a little bit loose. What about the intake? It is also a little bit loose. So there is a grub screw in here. I had to read up on that subject, I didn't know. That I can turn to adjust it. One full turn is adjusting 0.02, I think it is. So I need to turn it one full revolution, and there's a special tool for that I do not have. I presume that turning it in will tighten up the valve. I don't know, but I will try. So I'm going to turn this one full revolution. Until it snaps into place. Which seems to be right there. There we go. That was a bit of a snap. Hope that's the way it's supposed to be. Let's check again, 0.10. Yeah, now it's dragging the blade at least. I'm just gonna see if I can fit a 0.15 in there. Nope. So I'd say that's good enough. Then let's take the exhaust and do the same. There we go. Well, that made it tight. You know what? I should have left it alone. I'm gonna spin it back to the old position because I don't want a tight exhaust valve. And it is now too tight. So I'm gonna spin it back. There we go. I'm just gonna spin the engine an entire revolution just to make sure that everything is as it is supposed to be. And it's coming back. Maybe it just needs to be pushed down between the adjustment, I don't know. Yeah, now it's loose again. Yeah, but number 1 is fine. I'm just gonna check with a 45, because right now I can fit the 40. But if I can't fit the 45, then I don't think I can get any closer with this adjustment system. Yeah, no way I will be getting the 45 in, so these are just fine. I would like this one to be slightly tighter, but it's not possible within the tolerances. I'm gonna do it on the rest and then take you back. So they are now all adjusted. All of them were slightly out, some of them more than others. I did turn the engine a full revolution and tested it again, and it's fine now. And yeah, of course it's important not to go too tight when it comes to exhaust valve, because you will risk the possibility of burning the valve, which is a bad day. I do want to change, or at least inspect, but I do have a new thermostat, so I'm just going to change it, I think. So I'm going to remove this, and I'm scared about this because these are just, it's just some of those things that break so easily and will make the job a lot more complicated, but I will do it anyway. The guy I bought it from told me that it was leaking from this area, and then it stopped leaking. But I'm not really sure that I trust that it will keep on being stop leaking, so I would like to fix it. So far, so good. Ah, it's coming undone. Wow. And from this point in the video and going forward, I forgot to turn on my microphone, but I changed that thermostat, and then I went to the local shops, and lucky for me, I actually was able to find that bushing I needed for the alternator right there. Not the correct one, but it's the same size. I had to cut the threads down a little bit, but it did fit pretty nicely. So I got that in and reattached the alternator, and now it was possible to adjust it. There is still some play in the bushings on the top ball, but I will most likely fix that later down the line. Now it will work, it will cool the engine, and it will charge the battery, and that's the most important bit. So that's nice. I also changed the oil filter while I was in there. And then I put the engine on the crane again because I wanted to remove the engine stand. That way I can change the oil seal and put the clutch on. It wouldn't be possible on the stand. So I put it on the crane and put it on a table for double safety. And then I went ahead and changed the pilot bearing. A specific Porsche part, by the way, so it wasn't a cheap one. But I didn't want to risk having problems with that. So I changed it with a brand new one that I gently tapped into the crankshaft. After that, I fitted the main oil seal on the rear, one of the leaking ones. It's a big one. It was a little bit fiddly to get in. I used the old seal to gently tap it in, and it seemed to work out fine. Then I went ahead and actually smoke tested the entire crankcase of the engine, because I have a bad record of small oil leaks on the engines that I have rebuilt in the past. And I'm trying to figure out why. So I smoke tested the entire system. And the only leak I really found was the breather hose, which is really brittle. I'm trying to find a new one. So far I haven't had any luck, but the important places are tight. Then I continued on and fitted the flywheel, making sure to put it in the correct position so the timing marks are where they are supposed to be. Then I went ahead and fitted the clutch plate and the pressure plate. Torqued it to specs. And then I started to talk about what I was going to do in the next video, and giving out a huge thanks to the Patreons which are scrolling past the screen right now. There is a link in the description if you want to become a Patreon. And then right around here I'm going to say see you in the next one. See you in the next one.